Hey you, it's CovertGoBlue, and we're going to make a quick video to check out the notable cards from Shadows of the Past. This is a special little addition to Magic Arena coming with Shadows Over Innistrad Remastered. If you are drafting, then they put a certain number of these, I think it's like 12 every week, into your draft experience and then rotate them for another 12 the next week. But all of them are craftable right now on Magic Arena for Historic Brawl, and I guess not. No, these are the ones that are not necessarily legal in Explorer. So Historic and Historic Brawl craftable. If you go into your collection like I'm in, or a deck builder, and you go all the way down to where it says Shadows of the Past, this is where you can highlight this to see the cards, and you can see, of course, what you haven't collected. So are any of these worth crafting? It's a number of cards from the very first Innistrad set, which I can't believe was so long ago, but here it is. And which of these cards do you actually want? Well, Fiend Hunter is kind of a classic, and it can do some loopy stuff because it can exile any other target creature, unlike all of the typical brutal Cathar effects we know now that can only exile creatures your opponent controls. You can create your own loops with this and Lagrella and things like that, so this goes in a number of Blink decks all over the place. Another card that we talked about on previous show is Lingering Souls, a classic against time, probably a niche card now. One of my favorite cards as a young man was Seance. This was like my favorite card in one of the Magic Duels games. And this is actually a really sweet card. It's 2 white for an enchantment, and at the beginning of each upkeep, you exile a creature card from your graveyard. Each upkeep, by the way. If you do, you create a token that's a copy of it, except it's a spirit in addition to other types, then you exile it at the beginning of the next end step. Awesome for abusing all kinds of ETBs. Just this and like Wall of Blossoms, Wall of Omens type stuff. Things that draw cards. Satyr Wayfinder that fills the graveyard. That was my jam back in the day. Nowadays, probably too slow and too lame, but just kind of wanted to note it here. And Avacyn, Angel of Hope, of course, is a big one that a lot of people will be excited about, but I believe it was already in Historic Brawl, so I mean, kind of a reprint in this case. Invisible Stalker. If you play any kind of a hexproof deck, you want Invisible Stalker. For me, the most notable deck is the Rugo, the Bant colored one where you draw a card whenever you attack with a power of 1 or less creature. I think this card goes perfectly in there. Ninjas also want it. Snapcaster Mage. This is a huge one. Every single deck that runs a lot of spells will probably run some amount of Snapcaster Mage. For me, I'm most excited to play this card in Brawl, and also to play this in Roscoe. I think a Roscoe flashing back some spells at instant speed and making a body to keep you alive and put more pressure on the opponent is a big upgrade over a lot of other things that get done in the deck. Man, I loved Forbidden Alchemy back in the day too. Nowadays it's probably very outmoded and probably doesn't go in anything, as it's way too expensive to flash it back. Like, we have Memory Deluge now, but back in the day I loved Forbidden Alchemy from a different time. But as we continue to go along the list, there are a lot of cards that like have impact in the draft format, but aren't necessarily good Magic cards for like Historic Brawl. Tragic Slip might see some play. It's a very good commander card. The High Priest in Aristocrat style decks will be very popular. Morbid is an ability that you can only use if a creature died this turn, so great in sacrifice decks. And it tapped 2 untapped creatures to make a 5/5 demon. By the way, that doesn't say as a sorcery. Nowadays, I think it would be a sorcery, but you can do it on opponent's turn as well, which is pretty fun. Going down the line, Bloodline Keeper is a sneaky card that many people will be happy to see back. Maybe not in limited, unless they open it. But this 3/3 flyer for 4 doesn't seem too exciting, but it's a mythic vampire that taps to make another 2/2 vampire with flying. So it's a vampire that makes more vampires. And then you can transform it if you control 5 vampires, so there's some vampire synergy payoff. And then your other vampires get +2/+2, so it becomes a super lord 5/5. It's a pretty sweet card. I think a lot of people will like it. I can't remember. Did we already have Falconwrath Noble? Thought we did. But anyway, more Blood Artist effects at crazy rates. We already had them Burial Rites in Historic Brawl, so no big deal. But dude, Grizzlebrand. I still think there's a chance this card gets banned somewhere, so I better play it in Historic Brawl while I freaking can. Oh my goodness. Can I just craft it? There's no warning about it being banned anywhere? Good to know. Good to know. You got to check. If you don't read all the updates, you might miss a ban announcement, I guess. Going through red, at least they added some important red cards here. We've got Past in Flames, which is a sweet card for every single version of the Storm deck, giving all instants and sorceries in your graveyard flashback until end of turn and having flashback itself. Zealous Conscripts is a card that if we get a Kiki Jiki, it completely breaks the game. As it is, we have Reflection of the Mirror Breaker, but that's still mana gated unless you have a Zerta out. Now I've got a deck, but there are combos you can do with this where you can just untap the original Kiki Jiki and make a copy of it. If you find a way to copy it for free, like I said with Zerta and Reflection, then you can make endless 3/3 hasties and win games. It's good in Commander, trust me. Craft an Avacyn's Pilgrim for every deck that uses the color identity. It's a great little mana dork for sure. Maybe not in a pure control deck where you're wrathing the board, but in a ton of decks, this is going to see play. If you have a very expensive creature in your command zone, like a Muldrotha, or I mean, honestly, you might want to play this in a Troxa, because 3 mana of any one color and using it to cast creature spells is really, really good. So Somber Wild Sage, yeah, you might want to craft that. Then coming over here, this is an old school Garruk. I mean, I still don't even, like, it's going to take me a minute to remember all the ways that this Garruk works. It's a fine card. If you have a wolf deck, you should play this. I think for the most part, though, this is just kind of an okay Garruk card. Also, the color identity is black on the back, so even if you're playing red-green wolves, I don't think you can run this. So that's kind of rough. I don't even remember what this card does. Let's learn together. Gutter Grime, 4 and a green enchantment. Whenever a non-token creature you control dies, put a slime counter on this, then create a green ooze. Its power and toughness are each equal to the number of slime counters on Gutter Grime. Okay, it's kind of expensive. If this were 2 mana, it would be bonkers. Can we rebalance this card, please? I don't think anybody would mind. Spider Spawning is old school. I think it was already in Arena. Geist of Saint Traft? Ooh, the original blue-white beatdown card is back. Holy crap, and we have Thalia in the format, and we have, what's the other card? Skrelv in the format. This has Hexproof, so it's not as reliant on Skrelv. This card is sweet, though, and super powerful. Whenever it attacks, create a 4/4 white angel creature token with flying that's tapped and attacking. Exile the token at end of combat. Yeah, if you're playing spirits, if you're playing any kind of an aggressive blue-white, which I guess there are a couple of, unless it's completely synergistic like soldiers, Geist is super powerful. This might just, I mean, it can be your commander too. So we might actually have a new like blue-white tempo commander in Historic Brawl, because this card beats down and it's so hard to interact with. So yeah, we might have to try this one. And also we've got Drogskull Captain hanging out, which buffs spirits and makes them hexproof. So maybe spirits are a thing. We got some zombie power here from Diregraph Captain, which is great to get onto the client. We've got Stormkirk Captain for some vampire power, which is great to get onto the client. People love those decks. Then we've got Falkenrath Aristocrat, one of the most popular vampires, great for sacrifice, very, very aggressive, very sweet card. And then you have Huntmaster of the Fells for the Werewolf Clan. It's one of the sweetest, most beloved werewolves of all time. Very boomer werewolf, but a very, very cool one. And there's also like there's Immerwolf, which is kind of a werewolf lord. There was the Mayor of Avonbrook, which is a werewolf lord. So yeah, your werewolf deck just got a lot better. It got a lot of pieces. So did the vampire deck. That's exactly what an Innistrad like set should do. Sigarda, Host of Herons. Spells and abilities your opponent's control can't cause you to sacrifice permanents. Can be really cool. Definitely catches people sometimes. Maybe there's commanders like Tergrid that just cry, just sob when this card comes down. But I think it's pretty outmoded nowadays. 5 mana is a lot for it. But it can definitely go in a deck like Sis-A when you need to get a certain effect. So we'll see. Stuff like that. And then we've got a bunch of little artifacts. Are any of these good? I think these are all like for the draft experience, right? I don't see any that particularly pop to me. So it might be a little bit of an anticlimactic ending. I was hoping they'd give us Kessig Wolf Run, and it looks like we got Evolving Wilds, thank God. And we got Haunted Fengraf, which is tap for a colorless, 3 and sacrifice, return a creature at random from your graveyard to your hand. It's not great. I mean, Memorial to Folly is only in black, so I guess this gives you some kind of way to get a creature back in a color other than black, but doesn't really do it for me. So yeah, I think they missed on the colorless cards here at the end, especially Kessig Wolf Run, which really like Kessig Wolf Run. But I mean, other than that, like, there's some sweet cards in here that I'm actually excited to play with. Gotta do the Griselbrand while we can. A lot of people saying Atraxa exists now, so they don't have to ban Griselbrand. Please, 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 Zoomer, get out of here with your Atraxa. You don't recognize the OG. Boomers like me are gonna go down swinging with our Grizzle Daddy. And yeah, guys, this ain't Trapped. I didn't know that was in here. That one's sweet. Let me know what cards you're excited about from this set. Thanks for staying to the end of my video. Remember to like, remember to subscribe, and as always, you are cool.